Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where it seems that almost every week we're talking about horror movies. Why? Well, not only is it the season, but audiences also love them. Latino audiences, once again, driving another horror movie at the box office. But as we've also been discussing, they are cheap to make. But what's this? Oh my goodness! Universal and Jason Blum got sucked into a bidding war for the Exorcist brand and ended up paying $400 million for it. This is hilarious and fascinating. Buckle up. All right, so what the heck happened? Well, for instance, didn't the last Exorcist movie, Check Notes, open with $18 million? Yes, let me pay $400 million for that. So here's the deal, literally. Oh, and by the way, with this deal, who did Universal pay all this money to? I had to really dig into the coverage of the original deal because everyone was just like, Universal and Jason Blum paid $400 million for The Exorcist. And I was like, okay, but to whom? So it turns out they paid this to Morgan Creek Entertainment. Who? Well, you've seen this logo a lot. They actually do a lot of stuff. And I'm sure right now they're laughing themselves silly as they roll around in all their new money. They're like, we can't believe we got $400 million for this. All right, so Universal decided to negotiate by the new streaming rules. Mistake, as so many others have done. Wait till you see how many other people have walked off the edge of this cliff. So it's the same rules that got Netflix to pay $465 million for the Knives Out franchise. And that's the franchise, and the reason you do this is because you're buying the franchise out up front in entirety. There's no back-end participation in play. The old rules for negotiating was that you would pay a certain amount up front and then you'd say, put your money where your mouth is. Once this brand performs, you'll get a cut of the revenue. But now, because Hollywood has imagined all this money pouring in on streaming, you would think, I guess this deal was cut about a year or so ago when everybody still thought streaming was a really good, lucrative idea. But they were like, oh, we're going to make so much money, I don't want to share it with anybody. And so they're like, let's just give them $400 million up front, and then we'll be the ones laughing. Haha, how the tables did turn. Although there are other instances. They also made a bad movie. But anyway. So that's new versus old rules. The new rules to me seem stupid, particularly because Netflix bungled so badly on Knives Out. That deal up front made sense, right? A $312 million worldwide box office haul off of just a $40 million budget. It was the Thanksgiving movie that year, and it got an Oscar nom for Best Original Screenplay. So Netflix thought they were getting a moneymaker that was also an awards contender. But then after Glass Onion came out and kind of fizzled on both fronts, even though I really liked that movie, Netflix, everybody kind of thinks that Netflix got snookered. But The Exorcist, how on face value did that seem like it was worth $400 million? Again, it was a bidding war, which was driving the price up. But whoa, at a certain point, you bow out. When you play chicken, sometimes if you don't blink, you crash, right? All right, so anyway. The first movie, of course, is an iconic horror film with tons of box office cash and 10 Oscar nominations. The first ever horror movie to be nominated for Best Picture. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Who hires David Gordon Green to do that? I don't know if you saw the original director trash-talking David Gordon Green over the weekend. I'll explain in a moment why they did go with David Gordon Green. But anyway, The Exorcist, the original one, even won an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. But ever since, not only has the brand been kaput, but there are exorcism movies everywhere these days. There are a lot of exorcism movies. Although there are also a lot of detective shows also, which maybe potentially hurt the Knives Out brand a little bit, interestingly enough. Hollywood loves to copy off of each other. So Universal might have felt that, you know what, we're going to do for The Exorcist what we did with Halloween, with which Blum, again Jason Blum, and director David Gordon Green had brought back from the dead in 2018 with a $76 million opening. Oh, I like that. That seems promising. That makes it seem like it might be worth $400 million in the long run. And remember, this is for Exorcists to do whatever they want with it, anywhere they want, not just for one movie. Now, but since then, Green has lost almost all his initial goodwill with horror fans with crappy sequels. I saw some funny tweets this weekend, in fact, with that funny one from the James Franco. No, was it James? Well, the the short about the guy kept getting hung all the time, first time, and like Halloween fans to Exorcist fans, and I thought that was very funny. But yeah, the sequels for Halloween were awful. Jamie Lee Curtis, what are you doing? She has an Oscar too, but not for the Halloween movies. But the sequels, to their credit, the Halloween sequels opened bigger than this new Exorcist movie. So the thing is that David Gordon Green, he ain't the star. Nobody cares about David Gordon Green. In fact, right now, some people are a little upset with him. With Halloween, the stars are Michael Myers and Jamie Lee Curtis. No matter how bad she is, if she's on screen, there's some cachet to it. But who is the star of The Exorcist? What makes that franchise unique? They thought it was Ellen Burstyn, who does return. And clearly, it's not Ellen Burstyn. I'll just tell you now, they should have gone for Linda Blair. How do you not go in today's day and age of stunt casting and nostalgia plays? How do you not go for Linda Blair? Some of you might be like, Grace, Linda Blair doesn't want to come back. To that I say they spent $400 million. Universal's got some check somewhere big enough to make Linda Blair's head spin. All right, so I rewatched myself the original Exorcist about 2 years ago. I think it was during the pandemic. And let me tell you, it gave me the heebie-jeebies. It really disturbed me. I was sorry I watched it, but in a respectful way. It meant to give me the heebie-jeebies. And what really stood out to me about it, and what disturbed me so much, was the strong religious aspects of the film. Because more so than any of these other recent religious-themed horror movies, like The Nun 2 and stuff like that, their religion is kind of just a gimmick. But the original Exorcist, that movie truly believed in God and the devil, and therefore freaked me out. Now, fast forward to today, and I can understand why Hollywood might be a little bit nervous about a religious play. Not only are a lot less people religious today, but religion has become very heavily politicized. So they're like, we don't want to get involved in that situation. However, though, some of the reviews said that this new exorcism movie decided to kind of get into the religious situation by being an anti-abortion movie. And I saw a number of people in the LGBT community get very offended by that. And they, of course, are also big horror fans. Just take a look at Scream. So while the Latino population showed up, and maybe not to the degree that they would have otherwise, but, they lost the LGBT horror fans with that. Now, Universal and Blum, and by the way, Jason Blum is going to be a shark on this season of Shark Tank, which I find hilarious, not only because he's I think he's pretty good at it, but he's very aggressive at self-promotion. So I'm sure he got himself on Shark Tank. I'm sure it was his idea. And let's just hope he cuts better deals than this. They filmed Shark Tank in advance so the other sharks can't razz him about this deal. And I don't know if they would, but I'd be awfully tempted to. So stupid. All right, but it's also, what's even funnier? It's not his money. He got Universal to spend it. So that's really funny. I guess that makes him a pretty good shark. That could be his retort. He's like, wasn't my money. All right, so they're $400 million deep on this. So they're going to do more Exorcists. They're going to probably try and do another movie with maybe they will go after Linda Blair. They're certainly going to hire somebody else to direct it. And, they're maybe going to try and do a streaming show of some kind. Put it on Peacock? I don't know. This just seems crazy to me. They're like, where are we going to put our stuff once we pay $400 million for it? On Peacock? I don't think we should pay $400 million for it. All right, but they're going to have to really think about what makes The Exorcist special and unique, as I said. And I'm curious, what would you say the answer is to that question? And this is vital because the horror space today is ridiculously crowded. Look at the marketplace. The Nun 2 and Saw X are not only still both currently in theaters, with solid holds, I might add, but The Nun 2 just hit digital where it's doing very well. And that's a lot of horror all at once. Talk to Me is also out on digital. So people are already, they're getting a lot of horror. And the other two theatrical releases, by the way, the current theatrical releases, they've got better scores, including better audience scores. Exorcist Believer, of course, was supposed to come out next weekend, but it wanted to get out of Taylor Swift's way, so it moved up a week. And, would the extra week cushion from Saw X, would that have helped? With these audience scores, I don't think that it would have. Again, the Latino audience led the demo for another horror film, and then otherwise, the demos were pretty healthy. They just weren't big enough. The movie was evenly split pretty much between male and female moviegoers, and a healthy turnout from the coveted 18 to 34 crowd. They went all the way to 34, which is good. But considering that the original Exorcist came out in the early 70s, if this had been more of a prestige play, like the original was, in which this one clearly should have been, they should have been able to get some older audience members in here as well, who maybe had not seen the other horror movies, but were like, I remember The Exorcist, that was nuts, let's go see this new one. All right, and yet again, the total top 10 was under 100 million. Whew. So everyone was very excited in the industry about the arrival of Taylor Swift this coming weekend. Well, the theaters sure are. The studios are probably like, they're probably all upset about it because, of course, Taylor Swift literally cut them out of that deal. So they're going to see a whole lot of money come down and lose a whole lot of theaters, and they're not getting a piece of that action. All right, so Taylor Swift, by the way, has apparently already sold $100 million worth of tickets in pre-sales worldwide. What will her domestic debut be? Right now, Barbie is the girl to beat with the biggest opening of the year with 162, and Swifties are hoping to get their queen in the same pink zone. And they very well might with the pre-sales the way that they've been, and that it's the only game in town this coming weekend. But like Taylor Swift's movie isn't going to make $1 billion like Barbie, is it? Is it? I don't know with Taylor Swift these days. The woman can apparently do anything. As we'll talk about Taylor Swift a little bit more when we talk about this coming week. So don't worry, we're not done, Swifties. But as for the rest of the top 10 this weekend, it was just sad. I mean, look, the re-release of Hocus Pocus, which you could watch for free on Disney Plus, well, at no extra cost, that managed to get into the top 10 with just $1.5 million. Whew! The creator, though, saw the worst drop in just its second weekend, and I don't think John David Washington is going to have an easy time getting another gig after this. I mean, he's coming off of a whole string of flops, but this is just, this is bad. And as I said last Sunday when the creator did poorly in its debut, I think Gareth Edwards' best shot is directing a streaming show. Not even spearheading a streaming show, but just directing someone else's. I think that's his best shot. He also has become like the Scorsese in that he complains a whole lot about how we should be able to make movies for cheap. I mean, movies budgets are insane these days, but let's not be also, I don't know, I'm seeing everybody jump on this bandwagon all of a sudden, and it's like, you got to spend money to make people feel they need to show up at the theater. Again, we were all applauding Gareth Edwards' $80 million budget, but maybe if he had a $100 million budget and paid for a movie star, he'd be making money at the box office. So, I mean, it just doesn't matter if no one goes to see it. It was still $80 million. All right, so all these movies are just trying to scoop up as much cash as they can until they hit digital. Disney must be waiting, by the way, until the very last minute for Halloween, because you would think that would be when they drop A Haunting in Venice. But where's the window to put it on digital before it goes on streaming? Will it be a day and date digital Hulu release like Haunted Mansion was day and date on digital and Disney Plus? And by the way, The Nun 2 and Equalizer 3, they're already on digital. And doing quite well. And they did look at those holds. Those are pretty good. Nun 2 is okay. It's fine. But The Equalizer 3 is a great movie. I'm just glad. Go see that movie. Watch it however you can. I love that movie. All right, now, and I didn't review it because I was on vacation. I'm sorry. All right, now let's head over to the digital space, starting with Nielsen's charts for early September. What's it going to take to topple Suits, man? This is crazy. It's been weeks. And the show, with 9 seasons, which makes it a juggernaut, is still over 2,000 minutes. That means people are not only watching it, but they like it enough to finish all 9 seasons of Suits. I loved Suits, but even I didn't finish all 9 seasons. I told you, Suits is like business shows for babies. No offense. But I started there. You start at Suits, then you graduate to Billions, and then you go to Succession. That's the way it works. For those of you who enjoyed Suits, Billions and Succession are next for you, so have fun. All right, on that note, since Nielsen doesn't separate shows by season, that's why Virgin River is ahead of One Piece with 52 episodes to just 8. I think Nielsen should fix this, but I guess Nielsen's like, it's too much work to separate by seasons. Maybe they can't get that kind of detailed information. But I think it's starting to hurt the validity of their charts, to be honest with you. What do you think? All right, so then The Little Mermaid. Yes, it hit Disney Plus at no extra cost and is the only movie on the overall chart. Now, this number, I'm afraid to say, isn't incredible, but it's certainly respectable. Wait till we get to the movies section. I have a very interesting observation here. Woo! All right, but first, at least The Little Mermaid is on the overall chart, right? Well, Ahsoka cannot get back on there. It was there on its first week with 2 episodes, but the 2 weeks since, can't get on the overall chart. In its third week, it slipped to 7th place on the originals charts. Now, yes, as some of you have pointed out, Ahsoka is at a disadvantage with only 4 short episodes. Why do you do it, Disney Plus? They're so short. But it's a freaking Star Wars show. It should be more competitive than it is. I told you, Filoni is niche. I strongly believe that. Very strong fan base for sure, but a tinier one than I think Star Wars needs. Only Murders continues to be solid, but great for Hulu, and that was just renewed for a 4th season as season 3 just wrapped up. And yes, Wheel of Time fans, I see you, I acknowledge you. 3rd place on the OG chart, but still not good enough to get on the overall, but still 3rd place on the OG chart. But yet nobody talks about Wheel of Time. I don't talk about it. Nobody trends. It doesn't trend on the social media. Nobody makes videos about it. It's like the Lord of the Rings show. Apparently people watch it and then they're content. They don't need to talk about it at all. They're like, yep, watch that. What a weird fandom. But anyway, speaking of the Lord of the Rings show, that was another ridiculously expensive and turns out stupid deal. They're making I heard the completion rate on Lord of the Rings. I can't, it was, okay. It was under, I'll just say it was under 45%. It was under that, but I'm just trying to, not get in trouble. But they have to make a 2nd season because they spent so much money on it that they're stuck. But it's not good. All right, so I think Hollywood, by the way, needs to get back to those back-end deals because they're paying way too much up front. It's ridiculous. Although it's great for talent and people who own these brands because they don't have to put their money where their mouth is. Or, they're like, they don't have to see how it performs. They just go, thank you. Good luck to you. I couldn't do anything with it, but maybe you can. You certainly want to if you paid that much for it. All right, so on the movies chart, The Little Mermaid again has a respectable debut here, while all the other movies below it are crazy low. Clearly, early digital releases, shortening the theatrical window, has killed theatrical movies on streaming at no extra cost. Everybody's already watched them by the time they get there. That's good for the studios because that means they're making more money because, you have to pay for the digital one. But they're not filling that space with good original streaming movies to take up the space. I think you're starting to see the WGA SAG effect here a little bit from those strikes, to be honest with you. And we'll talk about that when we see the Netflix charts in just a moment, some more. But also, look, Moana is almost out of the top 10 and Encanto isn't even on here. Now, at first I thought that maybe instead of joining those other Lin-Manuel Miranda movies, The Little Mermaid had arrived just in time to take the baton from them. But then it occurred to me, did The Little Mermaid drink their milkshake? Did people stop watching Moana and Encanto so they could watch The Little Mermaid? Will they permanently switch to The Little Mermaid, or will they go back to Encanto and Moana after a week or so? We'll find out. What did you do? All right, so on Netflix's charts for just last week, they're faster because it's their own data. Starting with movies, Reptile has some pretty good names. I wouldn't say big names, but good names, and moved the needle a bit at number 1. And Netflix also continues to copy from Hallmark's playbook with Australian rom-com Love is in the Air. Look at that thing. It's so Hallmark movie. And I wonder if all the Christmas movies are coming this year because they did have the strike, which might have hurt their production. But maybe they got ahead of it and churned them all out before the actors went on strike. All right, then with shows, some of them I don't watch the Hallmark ones, but I've watched a few of the Netflix ones. I'm sorry to say, they actually weren't bad. Do you watch any of these Christmas movies? You can admit it here. It's semi-anonymous. I just admitted it. All right, then with shows, the final season of Sex Education is still number 1 in its 2nd week, but it's soft. Clearly, it is time for this show to wrap up. And these numbers are very low overall here too. Look how low Castlevania Nocturne is. Wow, I did not expect that considering this did have some chatter. Animation must be cheap. Because it got renewed as well. And with that size debut, oh my goodness. But yeah, Netflix needs a new hot show, and they need it stat. Will it be this weekend's Lupin, which we'll find out next weekend with the charts? Or maybe it'll be this coming weekend's Follow the House of Usher. Although I watched the first 2 episodes of House of Usher, couldn't finish it. Not even to review it. I was like, you know what? Go in peace, House of Usher. I can't take any more of this. So I don't think it's going to be that show. Mike Flanagan, what happened to you? He lost his mojo. Apparently, you guys said Midnight Club was really bad. I didn't even try that. But slow, so I was like, I'll watch House of Usher. And I've loved Mike Flanagan's other stuff, but this was just trash. All right, it was like American Horror Story tries to do Succession. Like if Kim Kardashian tried to explain Succession to you, that would be Follow the House of Usher. All right, so, but maybe some of you will like it. The reviews have been surprisingly strong, but I thought it was awful. And I don't think Netflix, by the way, I looked at their upcoming releases. You can take a gander and tell me what you think their next big show is going to be. I think it's going to be the Squid Game real-life reality show that comes out for Thanksgiving weekend. You know what? Thanksgiving weekend? I'll try that. I could see everybody watching that over the long holiday weekend. I think that could actually be quite big. And then, of course, they're going to drop a bunch of their awards films, which I don't know how many people are going to watch it, but cinephiles are going to be in heaven. You're like, wow, at no extra cost, all these big awards movies with these big names. That'll be fun. But, I think as for generating big numbers, I really just think it could maybe be the Squid Game show. And this is really the SAG, WGA strike lull coming into effect, because I don't see any big shows maybe till the end of the year. Woo! All right, so over on iTunes, Barbie was finally taken down a notch by The Equalizer 3. And as I said, Denzel delivered such a great movie here along with Antoine Fuqua. I think Barbie can feel okay about this. If she had to be taken out by someone, this is a great team to do it. In fact, The Equalizer 3-pack is also in the top 10. I mean, the first two Equalizer movies were okay, but they ain't nothing compared to The Equalizer 3. That's a thing of beauty. You can see The Nun 2 is in the top 10 as well. And as I said, Talk to Me is also up here, another horror film, which did very nicely in theaters. But you know what I have to notice? I have to point out, Dial of Destiny, let's give it its flowers. It's been in the top 10 for a while now, and pretty high up, right? It's not just hanging on by its toes. This thing has a full grip on the neck of the top 10. So you know what? And then it's going to go to Disney Plus, where it could even do perhaps bigger numbers, right? Interesting? Maybe we'll get a short round movie after all. I'll even take a Disney Plus short. I don't care. Harrison Ford, I think, has proven at this point he'll do anything for money. He's already doing a Marvel show. He's also really deep in at Disney. Let's get him. And also, so is Ke Huy Quan on Loki. I need this to happen. All right, and I think these numbers make me feel that maybe it could. All right, but Blue Beetle, while still in the top 10, is slipping towards the bottom in just its second weekend on digital. Then as for this coming weekend, here's Taylor Swift. Speaking of a horror movie, obviously Taylor Swift fans are delighted, but she's sucking up all the money and all the screens this coming weekend. So again, theatrical is thrilled, the exhibitors, but the studios are none too happy. No other movie is daring to release opposite her. There's no counter-programming. They're like, everybody loves Taylor Swift. And even if you were to release a movie, what would it play on? She's not only taking over all the premium screens, but she's taking over all the regular screens as well. So that sucks for any new movie that would have released. And even the movies currently in theaters, they're going to lose all their screens. And certainly any screen of like any normal size. You're going to be watching what's playing right now on the tiny little piddly screens before they hit digital. Tickets, by the way, are also non-refundable, and you can't use A-List or any kind of theatrical subscription service. So that is a lot of money in play, all for the theaters and Taylor. How big do you think Taylor Swift will open? Do you think she can open around Barbie? I think she's going to open around Barbie for sure, but I'm not sure if she's going to top Barbie. But again, as I said, I wouldn't put anything past Taylor Swift at this point. But before you think she's creating a whole new way for all music stars to make money, note that Beyoncé, a huge star herself, of course, her pre-sales were significantly smaller for the first day, like 30 million less. That's really fascinating. This might just be Taylor's year. And she won't be able to keep this up forever. This won't be Taylor's life forever. But wow, this is amazing stuff right now. And she is making music history for sure. She's also very good by the way, at keeping her name in the news, with this Travis Kelce romance boosting both of their profiles. They have to play it just right. I think they're on the cusp of annoying everybody. They've certainly annoyed some sports fans already, but those people aren't going to see the Taylor Swift movie anyway. So I wonder how the length of the Travis Kelce romance, I think, will reveal whether or not it's genuine or a brilliant PR play for both of them. All right, what do you think? All right, some of you I'm sure are like, it's true love. All right, so anyway, with digital releases, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is hoping to rise from the dead because, thanks to Barbenheimer, Tom Cruise hopes it was Barbenheimer's fault, nobody saw this movie. And part 2 comes out next year. And as I've been saying, if you don't see part 1, it's going to be hard to watch part 2. It's such a good movie. It's so good. I hope people discover it on digital. And also on digital, usually I don't mention these direct-to-digital films, but I was surprised. Well, Luke Bracey, I like Luke Bracey. I'm surprised his career never really worked out. He's got a little movie. But look at Zachary Quinto with Lucas Gage, by the way. But Zachary Quinto used to be such a big deal, and now he's got a direct-to-digital movie. As I said, Hollywood's a tough business. As for streaming movies, Hulu has The Mill on Monday, while on Friday, Jamie Foxx and Tommy Lee Jones star in The Burial, on Prime Video. That's going to do well. People like both those guys. Finally, with new series, lots are debuting this week. A lot, actually. On Thursday, Netflix's Follow the House of Usher comes out. Watch it if you dare. Tell me how many episodes you get through. Frasier returns to Paramount Plus. So you're going to try that? I got my Julia screeners the other day, and David Hyde Pierce for season 2. I'm so happy. And David Hyde Pierce is such a delight. I think it's just horrible that he's not on the new Frasier. He said he wasn't even asked. And the final season of Doom Patrol also debuts on Max on Thursday. While on Friday, speaking of Julia, Brie Larson gets her own version of a period cooking show on Apple TV. Although Julia Child is based loosely, very loosely, on a real story, whereas the Brie Larson one is fictional. But let's see. I'll be curious to see how it does. I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea to release that right before the Marvels. You don't want to Brie Larson people out before her big movie. Or maybe you'll rev them up? Interesting. What do you think? Brie Larson fans, are there any of you out there? Goosebumps has a new series that plays on Disney Plus and Hulu for some reason. And Peacock, speaking of Peacock and horror, they have a John Carpenter horror series. So they're over-horroring themselves too. Didn't they just have Twisted Metal as well? Where's The Exorcist going to go? I mean, if you paid $400 million for something, you'd think you put a freeze on all the other stuff in the horror space, being like, I paid $400 million, this is what we're doing with horror. So whoo, that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? And I guess I should ask you, what are you not watching? And what do you plan to watch? And what do you plan to not watch? Not going to watch that. And if you're not watching these new movies and TV shows, what the heck are you doing? Are you watching older stuff, right? Are you reading? Are you playing video games? Are you potentially going outside? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.